In January, the Senate Judiciary Committee questioned big tech CEOs about their role in protecting children online. This was really a hearing that was the first of its kind, and today on The Balanced Voice, we're lucky to have the opportunity to sit down with 3 parents who attended the hearing in honor of their late children. We're thrilled to have Sam Chapman with us again, who's been with us many times in the past to talk about online safety and fentanyl awareness, along with repeat guest Amy Neville and first-time guest Joann Bogard. All with us today to talk about much-needed change in the online space. Sam, Amy, and Joann have all tragically lost children to horrific online occurrences and all attended the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing in January. Renya and Jen talk at length with the 3 of them about what changes they would like to see made, details of the hearing, and new fentanyl remedies that all families should have in their medicine cabinets. To catch up on previous episodes with Sam, please go back and listen to episodes 24, 33, and 71. And for our previous conversation with Amy, check out episode 71. This is The Balanced Voice.
What a special episode of the Balanced Voice podcast. We have 3 parents who are champions, parenting their children through an unimaginable loss and then taking up the torch really to save all of our children. So Sam, Amy, and Joann, we're really, really thrilled to have you today. Sam and Amy, you've been with us before, and we're going to share a little bit of your stories and the podcast notes and links. But Joann, you're new to the show. Would you just share a little bit about your story?
Sure. So I am from Indiana, and in 2019, our 15-year-old son, Mason, viewed the choking challenge. Sometimes now it's called the blackout challenge. It goes by a lot of different names, but he was fed that on YouTube and tried it, and it was fatal to him. So he died at the age of 15.
Sam and Amy, we've talked about the poisoning of your children, and now, Joann, you're dealing with the loss due to an online challenge for kids who just want to go viral. And I think what's happened with this rising number of kids who are losing their lives is more parents are coming to the table saying, how can this be happening and what can we do about it? The 3 of you have really taken that mission on your shoulders. Talk to us, Sam. You were just at the Senate hearing now a few weeks ago. What was it like being in that room?
Well, as the senators started coming out, we all took our pictures of our lost children and held them up as high as we could. And the place went quiet. You could hear a pin drop. They weren't even speaking to their aides as they filed in. And then the CEOs of the platforms filed in, and it was sort of like a funeral dirge in there. And they had to look at all the faces of all the children that were lost on their platforms as they took their seats. Then later on, you may have heard, no one else could see that because the cameras weren't pointed at us. But later on in the hearing, Josh Hawley asked Mark Zuckerberg to apologize and then asked everyone to put the pictures back up. So that sort of set the tone. And then I like to zoom right to the end where Mark Zuckerberg gets chased out of there by a reporter screaming at him, "What about all the dead children, Mark? Are you responsible for those children? What about all the children that have been lost on your platform?" And he dives into his SUV like a criminal being chased out of there. So he came in like a funeral and went out like a criminal. And I make up the story. He didn't have a great day. And, until the powers that be feel our pain, nothing's going to change.
I mean, what do you say? How many parents were there with pictures, Sam?
It looked like between 70 and 80 parents. We're all so good, and Joann is the best at this, just networking among the parents. She leads a group that she'll tell you about with tens and tens of parents like me and Amy who are trying to push this ball up the hill. We all showed up dressed the same with the same size photographs, understanding the rules. We'd all gotten on the Senate list to be admitted and taught each other how to do that. And, what I have heard lobbying for Sammy's Law is that all of a sudden the parents of lost children have become a real political force in Washington, D.C., and they want us on this issue to push.
Amy, you what are your thoughts? Are your thoughts that these social media giants really understand what's happening? Are they taking any ownership, or is it still this thought that we created a space, people fill it, it's really not our problem? Zuckerberg's apology was, I don't know if it was an apology, but it seemed to be, so sorry that happened to you, but.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Zuckerberg's apology was. So sorry you guys have experienced loss. I mean, that's what we hear from everybody every single day that learns about that we've lost children, right? There was no accountability in his apology, nothing saying, oh, I'm so sorry that my platform contributed to the harm to your child. There's nothing like that in there. So we know it was just a very generic apology. And of course, like you asked if they are accountable, or do they know. They've known for years these things are happening on their platform. Snapchat's a perfect example of that. You can see them being warned starting in 2017 that, hey, Snap, you have a drug problem on your platform, and if you don't get a handle on it, it's going to be out of control. And now we're the fallout from that. Sam and I, our kids are fallout to that. In a meeting in spring of 2021 with Snapchat, they met us with that same thing. So sorry for your loss. We had no idea this was such a problem. A bold-faced lie right to our face. So they know what they're doing. They completely know. I remember asking somebody early on, an attorney early on in this lawsuit process, like, oh, man, I don't understand how they sleep at night. And he said to me, money makes for a very comfortable bed.
Well, I mean, Facebook was founded on the idea of harming someone.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of just talking about girls in a negative way. The other thing I would say is that what's amazing is we can go to these large language models these days, like ChatGPT, and go search and find all this stuff. And you're telling me they can't come up with the algorithms to go find this stuff automatically, right? So we know that's a lie.
They know. And you have to think of it like a dial. Like, they can dial up these protections, right? They dial up the protections, and what happens? They lose profitability. So they dial those protections back down.
Which is so frustrating.
I thought it was Snapchat that started out that way, not Facebook.
No, Facebook was, remember, Zuckerberg was dating somebody or liked a girl or something. And so he created the Facebook to talk about girls.
Right. Yeah, they were rating girls. They were rating people, right?
Yeah. And what they looked like, and like rate them, basically.
Yeah, they would rate them.
So Snapchat has an even seedier birth story where they were sending nudie pics, and one of the guys said, oh, I wish I could have that one back. And Evan Spiegel says that's an incredible idea and launches Peekaboo, which was a sexting app. And then they realized that mostly teens were using Peekaboo, so they just changed the name to Snapchat, and there you have it.
I wonder, I want to get into the three of you and what you've launched since the loss of your children. But before we go there, what do you wish parents understood today? There's so many parents try to distance themselves. Well, my kid is so good, and my kid wouldn't try this, and my kid wouldn't do and my kid wouldn't go down that street. I see it every day. We work in public safety. We see parents, the instinct is that could never be my story. What do you want everyone listening to hear right now?
I think what we all want to see is for parents to not be naive and not to take that stance of, my child is smarter than that, they would never do that, they know better. And just to remember, they are kids. They are kids. Those brains are still developing. They're going to make mistakes. And that's our role as parents, is to step in and guide them. But that's very hard when we as parents are fighting these big tech companies who it's David and Goliath. I mean, we just don't have a chance.
Do you think, though, when you were watching Zuckerberg say, like, when you were watching him speak, do you think like there's an ounce that cares? Where he's like, yeah, but I just, from a risk perspective, have to see somebody else's content. I can't, my lawyers have trained me. Or you just think he doesn't give
I don't think they give a shit, because once you care, you have to do something, right? Like, you cannot operate in a space where you care about human life or human beings in the way that they should. They don't have empathy, because the moment they have empathy is the moment they'll change.
Yeah.
I think they all face a problem that the legislation that's on the table would fix, which is they have to be backing off equally. If they back off one at a time, then the other platforms benefit from their, customers, if you will. But if COSA or Sammy's Law passes, this paints one picture across all of them, and that allows them or forces them to back off without giving up whatever they're going to have to give up to competition otherwise. They may reduce their numbers because they'll reduce engagement, etc. But if everyone does it together, it'll be less painful.
Can you explain COSA and Sammy's Law?
I'll explain Sammy's Law, and Joann can explain COSA. She's more of an expert on that. Sammy's Law is a simple, targeted approach to letting parents parent online again. It's House Resolution 5778, and the details are available on sammyslaw.org. And basically, it would require any social media platform with children on it to provide integration with third-party safety software. And that software is available from a variety of companies out there. It exists now. I dare say none of the three parents on this call would be there now if that software had been allowed onto the device or the platform that our children lost their life on. It sends out a message when something illegal happens or dangerous happens, so that a parent can have visibility to any harm that may be happening on their children's devices or on their software.
So Sam, for clarity, we're wanting the social media companies to open up a connectivity or a pipe of communication to these external third-party other software companies that can get the information it needs to help parents parent. Is that correct?
Yes, it's known as an API. They need to open up an API for third-party software companies to integrate with their platforms. It has to be a law because it has to be across platforms and across devices, so the kids don't just jump somewhere else. And you saw that with Discord, right? We had our biggest national security breach from a bunch of kids on Discord trying to prove they were cool. They can go anywhere, and these gaming platforms are really important for parents to watch out for because they are easy grooming grounds. Your kids played with someone for 2 months before they set the hook, and they're sure it's another kid, but it's really a 40-year-old creep. So watch out for gaming platforms. They're social media platforms as well, as far as a parent is concerned.
So
And
Sam,
I think that's, go ahead.
Sammy's Law it's a House bill right now. There's not a duplicate bill in the Senate?
It's not yet. We just introduced in the House in December, and we have 4 sponsors, 2 on each side, and bipartisan co-sponsors. And I've been back and forth lobbying several times and going back next week and the week after until we get up to the hundreds that we need to bring it to the floor.
So what can the public watching today do to help Sammy's Law? Call their own legislator or call this committee? Tell us what they can do.
So 2 things. You can call your legislator and let them know, or email them. They just count the letters that come in. They don't actually read. They determine is it for or against, and they make a tick. So email your legislator and go to sammyslaw.org and sign up. What happens is you sign up your support for the law, and then a letter will come to you when we have enough support for you to sign and send back to your lawmaker automatically. So you can do it either way.
And COSA?
I think, and just to kind of piggyback on what Sam was saying, so I was that parent who had watchdog apps in place. I checked his phone. We had the conversations. I did all the right things, all the things that a lot of parents are doing. But what I didn't know was, without something like Sammy's Law in place, those platforms, I thought I was getting notifications for everything, and I wasn't getting those notifications. I had no idea what was going on back there. I thought I had it all covered, and I don't. And so for parents to be wise to that and just make sure you realize you're not getting all of the information that you think you are when you're on some of these platforms, or some of these parenting platforms, the devices like Bark, because the platforms don't have any, like, they don't have to allow those connections. So, and I wasn't, as one parent, wasn't aware of that. So,
yeah, and we're going by the state route as well. We've got bills in the state houses of Illinois and California. So if any of your Texas listeners want to pick up the bill and run with it and bring it to their legislature, we would love that as well.
Kind of famous down here for doing those kind of laws. So we'll absolutely, we'll get a copy and kind of run it through. What we have actually called a Smart Act Army that can mobilize to help people.
Great.
Joann, did you want to tell us about COSA?
sure. So COSA is in the Senate, and it currently has 63 bipartisan co-sponsors. It's moving forward now, finally, getting some momentum. So we're hoping it'll go to a Senate floor anytime now. So it's looking positive. It's looking better that we'll get a vote. And COSA is the few things that it does, a lot of things. It's a very big bill. But the one thing that it would do is the duty of care piece. That's so important. And just duty of care, meaning it's going to make sure that these companies have to create a product. They have to ensure that their product is safe, just like any other American industry has to do. Car manufacturers have to make sure the seatbelts work. Paint manufacturers can't use lead. Tobacco has to put warnings on the warning labels on. There are so many things that other industries have to do that big tech has just skirted around because of lack of legislation. So that's the first thing it would do. The second thing would be reporting. So it would ensure that if there's an emergency, if you have a child who is on the brink of suicide because of cyberbullying, or has certain images out there that they're trying to get taken down, it will give the schools and the parents a way to contact them and say, take this down. Because right now, the reporting system that they provide for us is so flawed. I can tell you personally, since Mason's death almost 5 years ago now, every Friday I go online, I search for the choking challenge. I easily find dozens in minutes. I report them, and they very, very rarely take them down. So it's unbelievable that they don't even hold up. They're not even accountable for their own terms of agreement, which say they won't allow a lot of these things on their platforms. So that's one thing that it would, help in the schools and the parents, giving that direct contact in some way. And the other thing, and that would have helped Mason.
Were you able to take Mason's down?
Mason didn't have his posted. He recorded it, but since Mason died, which many of these kids do, when they do that particular challenge, it was never posted. So we found it on his phone, but it wasn't posted. And so I can also tell you that since Mason died, 95 more kids have died just from the choking challenge. So the other thing that COSA would do is it would automatically turn off all of the, turn on all of the safety features by default, so that parents don't have to navigate that complicated thing on all of the different platforms and the different ways to turn those on. So it automatically turn those on. And then auditing, it would require them to be more transparent, so that they would have to have annual audits and report what they find. So when, like we know now, they have a lot of things that they have found that are harmful to children, and they're claiming it doesn't exist when, like Zuckerberg said in his opening statement at the hearing was, they don't find any connection. I'm paraphrasing, but they don't find any connection between their platform and what was it, Amy and Sam, their platform
mental health issues. There's
mental health.
so that
yes.
mental health issues.
Yeah.
But social media does not impact mental health.
Yeah. So we know those things are wrong. And then the auditing, the default settings, and then the last thing would be that it could COSA would make sure that they have an option, that users and parents have an option to turn off those algorithms. So as we know, the kids don't have to search for these products. It's actually fed to them. You know, we're getting wiser to these things, and we kind of know how algorithms work now, and that's a big thing. If they can turn that off, so that kids like Mason and like Sam and Amy's kiddos, if it's not being fed to them, and they're not viewing hundreds of videos of kids passing out, waking up, getting those laughs and likes that they crave, posting it, if they're not fed that, they're not getting that false sense of safety. So, but those are just a few of the things that COSA will do.
Sam and Amy, I think we talked before about the algorithms and the fact that during COVID, I used to say if I start to write a COV, of COVID pop-up would come up. So they have the algorithms to find what they need to find and give the warnings they want to give. I'm curious of your thoughts on this. And Amy, I'll start with you. Matt Perrault, he's a UNC tech policy professor and former Facebook public policy director, had this discussion on Yahoo Finance to discuss the Senate hearing. And he's a former Facebook public policy director. And the question was, how do we regulate social media to make it safe for children? How do we integrate, like Sammy's law, parent monitoring? And his response was, the question about solutions is really a hard one. This is an issue, I think, where there's a lot of unity amongst parents and amongst lawmakers, but there is a challenge that we need to address. As a parent, I feel a lot of sympathy with that perspective. But the question is, and this is where I want your opinion, how do we do it in a way that's respective of a kid's right to free expression and a kid's right to privacy? It's really difficult to do in practice. Amy, what are your thoughts?
I think that, yes, there is a kid's right to privacy and freedom of expression to an extent, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, who's responsible for that kid? And anything that they do on that platform, it's mom and dad, right? I've always used the argument, what if my kid was the perpetrator? What if my kid was doing something bad on there and I don't get to know about that? I can't see that. I don't have access to that. If something goes wrong, who's held accountable? Me, the adult in the situation, right? And so I think that that's just an easy way to not have to answer a question on his part. If we just talk about, freedom of speech is such a hot topic, and to apply it to children and to apply it to these situations really lets them off the hook in answering those questions.
Like you're answering a question with a question.
It's insincere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They know. I mean,
where is a kid's right to privacy derived from? What document?
Yeah, right.
That's a great question, Sam, right?
Right. Especially when the government can come in on anything they need to for us, right?
I believe it's not in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. And when I had my children, it was my belief that their privacy was up to me, not up to them, because they're children. And in fact, when I spoke to Evan Spiegel, the CEO of Snap Inc., after our son died, he quoted a right to privacy as the reason he wouldn't allow for third-party safety software. And they don't want their data to go to someone else. That's the privacy he was worried about. The privacy of his ability to sell our kids' data for extra money. And I told him that child's privacy is up to the parents. It's based on age. It's based on maturity, and social media is hampering that relationship in ways that are unbelievable and impossible for parents to deal with, who are especially not digital natives like these kids.
Well, otherwise it'd be legal for us to give our kids weed and alcohol and cigarettes when it's like,
right. Yeah, so where does it end? Where does that end?
Right. I have a question for you though. So there are these bills that we want to get passed and how we can help with those. Now let's talk about the gap of time in between when the bills actually get passed and that gets enacted. What do you guys want to tell parents to do? What can they do right now?
Well, the first thing I always tell parents is, and it pains me to tell them this, but they need to create their own accounts, especially if they're just now setting up social media with their kids or letting their kids have it. Now's the time to do it. get the accounts, follow what your kids follow. If your kids are following certain groups, you have to follow those certain groups too. You have to see what they're exposed to, but also make part of the deal is to have them follow groups like my foundation, like the Alexander Neville Foundation, where we're putting out positive messaging and we're putting out these warnings. And so kids are getting the good with the bad, right? And then lastly, really take time each week, a couple days a week, scroll through that content, spend a good 5 to 10 minutes scrolling for the recommended content that's getting pushed to their kids. But remember, if they see something in there that, you know, gives them a red flag, doesn't mean their kids searched for it. It means that it could very well just being pushed to them. And so they have to connect with that same content their kids are connecting with.
And
I like to add getting the username and passwords for all of their devices and software. Absolutely. So that you can check if a kid doesn't come home, or if you have a problem child, you can check more often. Spot checking is inefficient, but it should be the quid pro quo for giving them the devices.
And I do think it like Amy
and even
said,
then you don't know.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it is very important to have that relationship with them. I think that's that first key, is to say, we're going to look at these things together. We're going to scroll through this together, because even though, and I totally agree with Amy, create that account. If they're on TikTok, you need to be on TikTok too. You can kind of see how the platform works and what it does, but also be aware that as a 40-year-old mom and a 14-year-old boy, you are going to get different feeds. And again, like she said, that doesn't mean that they search for it. You are going to have different things coming at you than they have with them. So just that reminder, like Amy said, that it doesn't mean they searched for it. So
other tips are to when you get your kids on the internet, teach them, if they get any inappropriate comment as defined by your values, to block and report, so that they take responsibility for the content that's coming their way and cleaning up the internet as well, so they know for sure it's wrong. You want to create a culture of understanding the downside of the internet in your family. So there are apps you can get that keep track of how much time each family member spends on social media. Download one of those, put the numbers up on the fridge, and have a family meeting once a week and try and bring those numbers down. Bring awareness to the addiction that's happening inside the family.
So you said follow what they follow, encourage them to follow good ones, scroll with them, have their usernames and passwords, and block and report. So those were some key things. And you know, I'll add one little tidbit to that is, also, if you see something that's crazy out there, sometimes I'll text my son and be like, did you see this ridiculous video? Like, that dude was crazy. I'm putting in positive messages of that's against our values, but not in a way of don't do that, right? Don't be so like a dictator, but more of a, hey, did you see that crazy stuff that was going on over there?
Joann, can you talk to us about the group you run?
I'm actually, so one of the groups that I'm in is the Online Harms Prevention Work Group. So when Mason died, he was an organ donor, and the network did a video and it went viral. It had I think just one channel had 40 million views within 3 months. So I had people from around the world reaching out saying, first of all, offering condolences, but second, what can I do as a parent to protect my child? And at the time, I had no idea, but that was my call to action. That was okay, I can't just sit on this. I have to stand up and do something. So in a roundabout way, I co-founded the Online Harms Prevention Work Group through the Action Network at Fair Play. And we are a collaboration of parents, educators, doctors, and about half of the group is a grieving parent who has lost a child to a social media harm, various harms. And we collaborate together to get state legislation passed, federal legislation passed, spread awareness just on the harms that are out there, on doing podcasts like this, and other ways, parent tip pages that we provide for cyberbullying and different topics that are harmful. So creating that education piece, trying to get education in schools, education, and then also trying to get it to where litigation, that it's okay, and we can sue these companies, because that's another way. And unless we hit the social media companies from all angles with the legislation, the litigation, the education, the awareness, all of these pieces have to play a part to make this move forward and to protect our kids online. So that group is very, very, I mean, they are an awesome group of people who just work day and night on new ways to protect kids online.
And when you hear that only 95 children have died from the choking challenge, that number could have been much higher if it hadn't been for her work. If you're looking for true American heroes, the two women who are on this show with me today are leaders I respect, who are saving lives every day when they wake up in the morning.
Same with you, Sam. It does literally, I think it takes more than a village to raise our kids anymore. It takes the entire world coming together, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. So.
And Sam, can you tell us, and of course we echo and are so thankful to you all for, as I said, you know, you're continuing to parent your children, but you're also parenting and loving on our children. And we thank you so much. New forms of remedies for fentanyl overdose, Sam, before we leave, and the upcoming House hearing about China's role in the fentanyl crisis. Will you just quickly talk to us about those before we wrap up?
OPVEE, OPVEE, is a new remedy for fentanyl poisoning that is out there. That is a nasal spray invented by the same person who invented Narcan nasal spray, and it's stronger. It's enough to get a victim to the hospital, especially if there is a fentanyl addiction. It's a must-to-have in the home these days. So more remedies, Narcan nasal spray available over the counter. Even if you trust your child, if their friends are coming over to the house, you better have some. If you're going to their football game or their basketball game, have some in the purse. This is the new EpiPen. This is the new defibrillator. Yep. We need them everywhere there are people. And yes, they're having a hearing in the House, tentatively scheduled for the 16th of March to have a discussion about the precursors of fentanyl, those chemicals coming from China, and China's role in contaminating America's drug supply. And they want parents who lost a child to fentanyl poisoning to come to the hearing and to support their effort to bring light and solutions to the flow of precursor chemicals from China, as well as the pill molds, which they are also sending over. And finally, before we go, our lawsuit survived the motion to dismiss from Snap Inc., Neville et al. V. Snap Inc., and we have 12 allegations going to trial and full discovery against Snap Inc. from 65 California families.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. Oh my gosh. Sam, Amy, thank you for being on again. Joann, it's been so wonderful to meet you. You know, at Crime Stoppers, we work every day to keep kids safe, and we hate to ever have to meet parents who have suffered the ultimate loss. But your voice and the power and the emotion and the determination you bring is going to move the needle. And we thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And for everybody else, we look forward to seeing you next time on the Balanced Voice podcast. Take care, everybody. So we just had an incredible conversation with Sam, Joann, and Amy. Okay, thoughts, takeaways.
Wow. So 3 sets of families on a mission with tons behind them to help make sure that our children don't die of fentanyl. Choking online challenges like the choking challenge. And probably sexual exploitation goes just along with that, right? These laws will help. Suicide.
Cyberbullying, suicide.
And they're taking their, what is a devastating experience and turning it in to help save your children, our children. And that's really hard to do. Right.
One of the discussions is, you know, do we allow parent monitoring devices on social media platforms? So that's a huge issue because parents don't realize Social media platforms are not there to protect your children. They're trying to feed them content and get their engagement, get their eyeballs.
For money.
For money, right? Because they're a commodity. Platforms like Bark, huge supporters of Bark, partners of Bark, love them, are not even allowed on TikTok.
They don't connect.
They're not allowed.
Well, I think there's some apps that they are able to connect into, and they can definitely see text messaging on a phone.
Bark, yes.
Bark, yes. But they don't have pipelines, what I call communication pipelines, to go and see that data and bring back to you alerts. So you may be doing a great job at using Bark or other technologies.
Which is amazing.
But that technology doesn't always have the access it needs.
On platforms like TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, the Discord, the giants that, where a lot of this stuff happens and parents are blocked. So the fact that the social media giants are saying we have to block this for privacy, it irritates me to no end.
Yeah.
A kid's right to privacy on Discord.
The fact that Zuckerberg is so unempathetic, pisses me off and wants me to shake it. But Sheryl Sandberg helped us pass FOSTA SESTA.
Where is she now?
She left. I think she's just, kind of retired. But so this tells you now more what I believe. Your book, the online world, books like Tech Trap.
This is amazing.
This is a book that I didn't realize. Shout out to Norm Holden, who I'm at a new company now working for, and as a chief technology officer, and he is a president in our company. He wrote a book he wrote text messages to his daughter every day to reconnect with her, because he felt he travels like most of us do, and he started texting with her and started building a relationship. So I guess my point of that saying is books like The Online World, understanding what they're going through, doing the 5 things that that Sam and Joann and Amy told us about, as well as building an online relationship with your kid, is so important. And you have to do those extra things.
We have to. And here's the other thing. Guys, look, we're all pulled in a million directions. Some of us care about food deserts. Some of us care about, providing clothing for... We all have different niche interests. But I think we all universally agree that we need to do better protecting our children online. There's ways you can get involved. Sign the petition, #LetParentsProtect. Go to sammyslaw.org. The links to all the websites and all the legislation we discussed on the podcast are there. Write a letter. It doesn't have to be long. It should just say, I am in support of House Bill, et cetera, et cetera. We'll give you the content. Send it, because that little email, that phone call, that signing of your name is what is absolutely required right now to clean up this space for the singular purpose of protecting
making
children.
Sure you don't have to bury your child.
Seriously.
I mean, it's so easy. A 2-second text, to have a conversation about what content your kids are seeing on social media, building a relationship with them. It is so super easy, and we're very busy, but we have to do it. And we don't want to be in that situation.
You have great kids. Congratulations. Still do it. Your kids don't make any mistakes online. That's amazing. Congratulations. Let's still do it. Your kids go to great schools. They get all A's. They're at a great friend group. Congratulations. Let's all still. Jen, I feel like this is like a universal call to action.
It is a universal call to action. Because those families that we talked to today, they were all doing the extras with their child.
That's what's scary.
And it still resulted in something that they'll never.
It's very hard to see Joann sitting there with her beautiful son over her shoulder, and may we never, ever, ever, ever have to be in those shoes. But it doesn't matter if we're in the shoes or not. Somebody somewhere, some child today is being exploited online, being abused online, being manipulated, being lured. And a predator's greatest gift is the access to our children, and we need to turn that access off. Simple movements can make a change. And I'm buying this book for me and Rami.
And Rami.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I know I'm going to buy it for Rami. It's going to be my gift. I thought of you. So thank you for joining us. Yeah. Universal call to action.
Universal
for
call to
Jen
action.
and Rania.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time.
Damn it.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Conversation. You can find real solutions and tangible resources in our show notes at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. To join the conversation, follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice Podcast and on Twitter at @BalancedVoice_. Stay up to date on Rania's work by following her at The Rania Report, and we can't wait to see you next week for another Balanced Conversation.